Now, we've been living there in Indiana for about 2 years when my mother got sick, and she died. Now, at first, we didn't know what she died of. And then people started talking about this thing called milk sickness. And it turns out that there was this weed that grew there in Indiana, well, probably still grows there today, called white snake root. And when cows would eat this weed, because it was poison, it'd make them sick. But they didn't look sick on the outside. You couldn't tell they were sick just by looking at them. But if you drank milk from those animals, chances were real good you'd get sick and then you'd die. And a lot of people did die. A lot of people. And my mother was just one of them. Now, it's bad enough losing your mother when you're only 9 years old. But it was especially bad for my family. Because now there was down to just the three of us. My father, my sister Sarah, and myself. And we didn't know what we were going to do. 3 people living in those kind of conditions out in the middle of nowhere, it's sort of hard to get all the work done. See, one of the reasons people had bigger families back then was it meant there was more people to help share the work. Because it was so hard living there. More children, more hands, more people could do work. The more work you got done, the better you were able to live. So now we were just down to 3. My sister, bless her heart, she tried to do the things that my mother had done. But we never realized how much work my mother had to do just to keep that family going until after she was gone. And my sister just, she couldn't do it. She's just too little. See, she was only 2 years older than me. She was only 11. She needed a mother just as much as I did. So it looked pretty bad for us. And we tried, and it wasn't going real well. And then my father got an idea. You see, he had known this woman back in Kentucky before he'd met my mother and married her. And this woman had gotten married herself, and she'd had 3 children. And then her husband had died. Well, my father thought maybe if he went back to Kentucky and tried to find this woman, then maybe he could ask her to marry him and then bring her and her children back to live with us in Indiana. So that's what he did. We didn't have a lot of other options. So he set off for Kentucky, and he left my sister and I alone there in the cabin in Indiana. And he was gone for 2 months. Now you might think, well, a 9-year-old and 11-year-old all by themselves in the middle of nowhere in a cabin? That's not the right thing. But you have to remember, back then, you grew up faster than you do today. So that by the time a boy was 9 or 10 years old, he knew pretty much how to take care of himself. And my father left us with what we were going to need. And our neighbors, although they were quite a ways away, they knew we were alone, so they'd stop in every once in a while to check on us. But the biggest thrill for me was it meant I didn't have to take a bath for 2 months. Now let me tell you, a 9-year-old boy who doesn't have to take a bath for 2 months, it's like you've died and gone to heaven. So I decided what I was going to do is I was going to see just how filthy I could get before my father came home. And I worked hard at it. I did. Now my sister, she didn't seem to appreciate the effort that I put into it. She'd spend a lot of her time not real close to me, and she'd stay on the other side of the cabin, and she'd be pinching her nose and stuff like that. I guess I got to smelling pretty stinky there after a while. I didn't notice. But I'll have to tell you, I'll never forget the expression on my stepmother's face when she finally came back with my father. He had met that woman, and he brought her back. And the first time she opened that door, she was all set to meet her new stepson. She opened that door, and it was sort of dark in there, and there I was scrambling around. It was like I was in a squirrel in a cage someplace or something. And she came in and grabbed me by the ear and pulled me outside into the sunlight and took one look at me. Oh, my heavens, this boy is filthy. And I was. I was basically, from head to toe, I was nothing but dirt with eyes. And the first thing she did was tuck me under her arm and haul me down to the creek, where she proceeded to scrub me with a corn brush and lye soap until I was raw. I think she took 4 or 5 layers of skin off me. I was dirty, but it hurt. You can't imagine, really. She had to scrub so hard that from the next week and a half, I felt like somebody had set me on fire or something. I never went for 2 months again after that. No, sir. I was not going through that cleanup thing ever again in my life. That was it.